Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking out time to join us today for this special virtual roundtable on Decoding Budget 2024. I'm Prajakta Karnik, editor of Logistics and SCM magazine, and the moderator for the session. Today, we have the most eminent speakers who've joined us. Let me first introduce them. We have with us Mr. Uday Narang. He is the founder and chairman of Omega Siki Mobility, one of the leading players in commercial vehicle segment. We have Mr. R.K. Narayan, who is the President of Strategy and Business Development, Horizon Industrial Parks. And our last speaker is Mr. Shaunak Mehta. He is the Chief Business Officer at Flomic Global Logistics. To just set the context, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has announced the interim budget for 2024-25. Despite being an interim budget coming just before the general elections, the FM seems to have surprised the industry and investors by announcing an allocation of 11 lakh crore for infrastructure development. First, I would like to understand from all three of you, was the industry expecting such announcements? We will start from Mr. Shaunak, followed by Mr. Narayan, and then Mr. Uday.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, we were expecting announcements, but I think it's a little bit early. Let's see how the elections go and how the new budget comes in. Yes, there have been substantial growth and movements on that front, like in the railways, Gati Shakti plan for the airports. So yes, it's welcomed, and we're expecting some more intricate details once the detailed budget is out soon.
Yeah. So I would say that the interim budget was, being an interim budget in the first place, was perhaps along the expected lines. One didn't really expect much of spectacular kind of an announcement, or any major tax reforms or tax cuts or any major changes in expenditure. But what was certainly there was, directional positive by reallocating the focus on infrastructure investments. And few other things that I would say that, a very clear continued commitment to infrastructure and CapEx is there, in this announcement.
Mr. Narang, your
I think that,
comments?
Yeah, I think that, it was something that obviously, we always want more than whenever we get something, right? That's just human nature. But I think obviously, there's a continued extension of FAME subsidies, which I appreciated. The increased PLI schemes on auto components, that was appreciated. Focus on clean tech, charging infrastructure, renewable energy companies. So I think, I think there was something for everybody. Obviously, it's never going to be enough. As they say, the devil is in the detail. When the detail comes out, I'll be glad to look into it and understand it better. But as I said, I think as long as my overall approach has been, don't ask what the government can do for you. Do what you can for the government and the country. The government will do what it will do. So anyway, long and short, I liked it. We always wish we would more. As human beings, we always want more. But I think the government is working in the space. For me, green energy sustainability is the most important part. The auto sector is very important. The infrastructure development is very important. I think there were things in there. But again, we have to read the devil in the detail and get more on that.
Shaunak, to begin with you, the focus has been on infrastructure, on rail transportation to reduce logistics cost. Do you think it will impact road transportation industry to some extent, given the focus on railways, and also that nearly 70 to 75% of freight movement happens via road?
If you see the railways, there are 3 economic corridors programs which will be implemented. One is the energy, minerals, and the cement corridor. Second is the port connectivity corridor. And third is the high traffic density corridor. To put it in perspective, if you move a container from Nhava Sheva to say Guwahati or Siliguri, a 20-foot or a 40-foot, it takes 7 to 10 days transit time. While if you put it in a train, it takes only 3 days. Now, once the port is connected with the railway corridors, then it will be drastically beneficial for perishables, for pharma, because when they're moving it at the moment from Nhava Sheva, they're moving it to the main station. So there's a transportation as a handling. Then again, stuffing it into the wagons, again destuffing at the destination from the wagons to a truck, finally to the warehouse. So if this happens, the port connectivity corridor is effectively implemented, then the containers can go straight away and it will reduce cargo, basically the carton handling. That will be very beneficial. And it'll reach in 3 days to Siliguri. So what else do you want?
So then, the improvement, also there is focus on the aviation sector, increasing the number of airports. So how is that also, going to, all three put together rather? We are seeing the road network improving. We are seeing the railways being, more corridors being planned for that, aviation, more airports. So how is that, all put together, securing India's position as a reliable global supply chain partner?
See, in the Gati Shakti plan, they've got ports and they've got airports. They've got around creation of something like 200 new airports and heliports.
Correct.
Like Mopa is already up and about in Goa. Then there's Noida, there's Chennai Greenfield. Then there's one in Andhra. Then the Calcutta airport and the recent Ayodhya one. All this will definitely help for exports as well as for domestic movements. Now, you had to custom clear the cargo at Mumbai and then did a domestic movement wherever you wanted to go or something. With this, international airports also being made, cargo can go straight via Mumbai airport to Ayodhya or Calcutta and get custom cleared at the destination and no need to do transit at Mumbai. So that will be very beneficial for the exporters and importers. Again, pharma, perishables, time critical movements will benefit drastically from this.
Talking about customs, there's also a mention in the budget about the same, and finance minister has mentioned that the GST has been hailed by the investors and also the industry, and because of that we have seen the an improvement in the index, logistics performance index. We have climbed to 38th position in the recent report that they have released. So all these things come together are going to help India's positioning strengthening further.
Of course, definitely. The more exports happen, the more GST is going to be collected. The more imports happen, the more GST is going to be collected.
Coming to the warehousing segment, Mr. Narayan, can you throw some light on the improvement in the industrial and warehousing parks space in the last couple of years, considering the emphasis on improving infrastructure and connectivity?
I'll just come to that point. I just want to make a comment on the earlier question that you had raised, Prajakta, to Mr. Mehta. You talked about whether things are going to be in favor of rail versus the road.
Correct.
First of all, I don't think so that's even a talking point. I think we should be talking about this maybe 10, 15 years later. Remember that, we are growing at 6.5%, 7% as a GDP, and to leapfrog from developing economy to a developed economy, frankly, we have to be growing at, probably 100, 200 basis points more, 8.5. So there is enough room. World over, we know that rail comprises a larger percentage than road, whereas we are the other way around, perhaps. So it's a long way. So I don't think so that's even a question at this point of time. Even airport logistics, for that matter, the volumes, the tonnage that we do at the major centers of Delhi, Bombay also, or Bangalore, is still very small as compared to what's seen some of the others. So let's first get there, and then there is this question of one component of multimodal versus the other. Coming to the warehouses side, definitely, warehousing has seen a very stark change versus what it was 5 years. More and more institutional participants and developers, coming around. A lot of foreign investments happening. I think it can perhaps grow even faster. But supply side, there are bottlenecks. Yes, infrastructure has improved, and therefore, one is able to go to a newer sub micro market within a city. Previously, for example, you had only one or two major logistics corridor around a city, but thankfully, because of ring roads, peripheral roads, etc., in many places, and expressways and so on and so forth, there are more and more areas which are becoming available. good part about this infrastructure focused investments of the government is now it is opening up newer and newer frontiers or areas. It's going far beyond tier one cities. It could go to tier two or even tier three for that matter, because it's just a question of how much square feet are you doing. And so therefore, because of these connectivities, instead of there being a hub located and serving a 500 kilometers, now you can as well have a hub located, and serving a 200, and then you have got micro locations around the towns and cities.
Mhm.
So we do get demand from various logistics companies and e-commerce companies, etc., for smaller location. Currently, for a national player, it will not make economic sense to actually do a smaller size development, but I think sooner we will get there. So it's a whole lot of, and even on the industrial side also, we are seeing a lot of industrial demand, not just from the major cities, particularly places like Chennai and Pune, but a lot of other industrial towns in the states, for example, like Karnataka or other places. We are seeing that we are still trying to figure out that how do we get and make investments in an industrial only asset in a tier, not, let's not call it as a tier, but in some industrial town.
So on warehousing side, you are seeing a lot of demand, but not on the industrial per se.
No, we are seeing a lot of demand from industrial, both from
Okay.
tier one and tier two. But being, we want to be investing in sectors where, let's say, both the demands exist. The issue
Correct.
with smaller cities, smaller towns, industrial towns, say Dharwad, for example, in Karnataka or so places, they are mostly industrial and very specialized, built to suit kind of a specific development. Whereas we would be wanting that asset class to be more flexible, whether to accommodate a storage or accommodate an industry. We got to figure that out. Maybe sooner or later we'll be there.
Okay. Given the improvement in, as I was earlier talking about the number of airports being planned to increase. So, are we seeing because multimodal logistics parks have still not taken, the pace that at which it should have gone up. But with focus on infrastructure, we're seeing multimodal logistics parks becoming a reality and very soon.
Yeah, so it is becoming reality in some places. I think it was mentioned
Yes.
earlier, some of the places there. So at least the railroad combination of multimodal, you got railroad, water, or air. At least the railroad part, I think, is getting sorted, and maybe port, along with it. So port, rail, and road, that part is getting sorted. Air cargo, I think we will still have to wait. Like I said, major airports of Delhi or Bangalore, at least now they are coming up. Whichever is the airport development authority or the airport development company is indeed coming up and putting up space for logistics and warehousing, because the cargo volumes are increasing.
Correct.
Right, but we still have to see cargo volumes coming up in these smaller places. So it will have in its own sense some bit of warehousing logistic space requirement. But multimodal today is still dominant by rail road combination and maybe with the port combination.
Okay. Uh, there was a focus on the agriculture. Agriculture segment has always been a favorite of the Modi government. And how do you assess that focus on the agri segment, especially when the budget highlights on improving post-harvest activities, including aggregation, modern storage. Rather, modern storage is something which is likely to give a boost to the warehousing segment. How are you seeing that aspect?
See, I mean, that obviously will grow, and there are, I mean, trust me, if we were to just look at what is the total square footage of warehousing, it's pretty high. We are only talking about what is the grade A and grade B set of warehousing, which is very still low. I mean, various numbers will tell you that the grade A and B warehousing is, for example, 230 million square feet, whereas in aggregate, we are talking of 600, 700. So still, which perhaps I don't know whether it even counts the agro warehousing. So agro warehousing has always been there, but with this kind of a setup, you will see more and more larger developer participation. Again, agro warehousing can run from grains, which is let's say serviced by Food Corporation of India and or the state warehousing corporations, to maybe processed side of things, were harvested in one season and utilized throughout the year. Within the agro warehousing, even cold storage also I will put in that, dairy and foods and other segments. So those demands will happen, and I would say more sophisticated and larger investments from institutional, where I'm just limiting to the kind of organization that we are. You will see from the more value added kind of warehousing development like cold storage and even meat products or other stuff, pharmaceuticals and milk and dairy and everything, and then go towards the agro side of warehousing. Agro side of warehousing, at least there is a warehousing regulation which properly exists.
Correct.
Silos, there has been a lot of investments in the silo side. But we once the volume increases, then you will see people coming in more and more.
Okay. But is the industry ready for investing in such kind of warehouses, or it will still be a fragmented or an unorganized segment?
I wouldn't like to call it as an unorganized. I mean, incrementally, maybe local developers, will be more in those, agro side, but gradually then it will change to more institutional as volumes. It's all a question of how much volume of opportunity exists. But you would see maybe if things roll out and you need replacements or a parallel set of infrastructure than the APMCs. APMCs are serving that today, but they are all bust, with it seems, the more and more capacities are needed. So you will see maybe local developers coming first and then institutional coming down the line.
Moving on to the EV parts, the electrical vehicles, which is one of the favorite topics of Mr. Narang. So, how do you see how has the growth and development been in the EV segment since the last few years?
Look, I think it's just not my favorite area. It is the need of the hour. I think that with 31 of the most polluted cities in the world in our country, we need clean tech. We need a much, much greener and sustainable country. I think the 1.4 billion people. I think the most important agenda should be green energy stability, EV, hydrogen, whatever is part of it. I just came back from France 2 days ago. I was testing hydrogen vehicles of OSM in a very, very tough terrain. My point is that, you're seeing a very large move towards, green energy products, whether it's EV or others. You're seeing three-wheeler industry almost be 53 to 54% electric. You're seeing two-wheelers. We're coming up with trucks. Others, Tata Ace has already come up. Many others are coming. I think in the passenger side, you are starting to see a big move. We see the number of green plates. And I'll be honest, as I, over the last 5 days, travel Europe, UK, now, in the United Arab Emirates, we are not seeing as many green plates as we are in India. So I'm very, very proud. I'm very, very happy. But abhi to sirf, trailer hai, movie to abhi shuru bhi nahi hui. It's a long, long way to go. I think we've just started. And I think that, when I see the Bajaj, the Tata, you see Mahindras, everybody joined the game. It excites me. It tells me, and with the startups that have, new technology in battery, powertrains, in the export of automotive parts, in renewable areas, in auto components, in charging infra. I think it's a very, very exciting space. Rome wasn't built in one day. I know in India we want to build everything in 2 days, right? But I think it's going to take time. But I think the move, and it's not just the move. I think what's most important and what is the need of the hour for the future generations of our country, and especially you, young lady, and all the Nari Shakti of this country, is to build a much greener and cleaner country. And I think, you're seeing a big, big move towards that.
So this time specifically, it's been mentioned in the budget that we need to create an ecosystem for EVs. So is that something that was lagging, and the industry was on its own trying hard to create an ecosystem for its own sector?
I think clearly the ecosystem building, you're absolutely, completely right on the spot that we need to build the ecosystem. We talk about building and competing with the Chinese. The Chinese have built an ecosystem in terms of, green energy stability, which is unmatched. Really have to give them credit for that. The infrastructure development. But I think India today is starting where China was 1989, 1990. We have got infrastructure development. We are getting ecosystem being built. But the ecosystem is going to be built two ways. One, internally, one, building alliances and making India. So I think, there has to be, if we want to get scale, and the most important thing, and something that I always talk about, is I don't want just development in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore. I want to be in tier 2, 3, 4 cities. The 1.4 billion people don't live in these cities. They live outside. And if we want to get the scale and we want to get the ecosystem, we want to be in Uttar Pradesh. We want to be in rural Tamil Nadu. I want to be in rural Karnataka. I want to be in West Bengal. This whole country is my country. It's not, states. I know election is up, so everybody's talking about their own. But I'll tell you, this is one country. It is one India. And I think we all owe it to build that. And I think the ecosystem building has to be done. The alliances has to be done, whether it's the Europeans or the Japanese or the Koreans. Look at what Hyundai and Maruti has done, and Suzuki have done in India. I think we can do that, and I think what other place but to be, I'll be honest, I go to Europe. I mean, I just want to come back home. For all of its sins, I find the country and the ecosystem building and the opportunities. I keep saying there are multiple opportunities for all of us to build a better, cleaner India. And I think building, you actually had, if you talk about, the PLI schemes, if you talk about battery manufacturing that I talked about in the budget, infrastructure development, increased spending on, roads, bridges, that would help logistics, transportation sector is very important. I think focus on clean tech, emphasis on renewable energy and sustainable development initiatives could create opportunities for OEMs to make a cleaner, greener India. And obviously, charging infrastructure is extremely important. And automotive components, which we can be exporter of EV to the world, has got a lot of opportunities. So look, I'm not charged up just because I'm in the space. I'm charged up because I think the opportunities in this country are unheard of, what I've seen. And wherever I go, I feel like, with that young generation of ours, where 65% of the population is under age of 35, 48% of the population is Nari Shakti. Who can beat us? Only us. If we combine forces and build it together, I think we've got a great opportunity. At least I'm doing it.
So, Shaunak, he has been, Mr. Narang mentioned about, the entire zeal. And even Mr. Narayan said that private investments are expected in warehousing segment, but that will take time. Have you seen since the last budget that was announced last year, which also had some 10 lakh crores of investments, allocation? Have we seen private investors actually coming up and investing also from the logistics side, getting more active in making investments, or is it still we are hoping for the government to spend more and then still in a wait and watch situation?
No, FIIs are very aggressive on this. If you see, there are only handful of 4-5 companies, logistics, freight forwarders who are listed on the Bombay Stock Exchange. But having said that, if you see shipping lines like CMA is now put in, who was predominantly an ocean carrier, having their own vessels and containers, is now having their own planes. There are some carriers who are having their own local transportation now. So they are putting in money, they are pumping in money into India because they see a bright future. There is stability in the government, which is enabling the investments to come in because they know there's a market for it. So definitely investments have come in and will continue to flow into India in this sector as well. There are these big companies, like Mr. Narayan said, they are going to open logistics parks and lease it out to you for 5 years, 10 years. So that's all coming in from a lot of the foreign investments.
And also in the green initiatives that they have been
True.
getting into.
True.
We have
The
Maersk,
Chennai airport, the new Chennai airport is a greenfield
correct.
project.
And companies like Maersk have also introduced their methanol ships. So, I mean, the stable move towards sustainability as well.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Coming to my last question for everyone, now that this was interim budget, how do you see the full budget? I mean, because to say so, this budget actually was, can be considered as a precursor to Modi 3.0. if we see to so to say, because it's a lot of focus on infrastructure, though it was not a populist budget, but still is it a Modi 3.0 that we're seeing through this budget? And what is your expectations from the full budget that we'll be seeing in probably June this year?
To start with, if you see the road transport and highways, they are planning to spend around 278,000 crores this year. So that means you're going to have more coastal roads, you're going to have better highways. On the railways, they're going to spend something like 255,000 crores, which is a significant 5% increase from what they have spent this year. To add to this, they are also now trying to increase and better the life of the truckers and taxi drivers, which was there in Europe and all for donkey's years now. Now they're going to have toilets and bathrooms and rest areas for them. So they are looking at this segment, they are looking at this industry, that until there's comfort, it's not going to help. The trucks in Europe and in America were always with air conditioning. It's only now that the new generation trucks are coming with an air condition for the drivers, and they can drive for a longer period of time at one stretch. Those things are definitely going to help the industry. And yeah, let's see what else they are bringing in as advantages for trade, for import export in the duty structures. I doubt there'll be a drastic difference, but they will have to bring in little benefits, additional benefits for the exporters to increase Made in India.
Mr. Narang, your take on it?
Look, I think as I said, I think post the elections, I think you're going to see a much bigger push. I was just speaking to some people in the investment banking committee, investment business here in the UAE, and I was telling them, ladies and gentlemen, watch the opportunities in India over the next 5 to 10 years. There's nowhere else. I think the budget, once the election is over, will be even better. I think this is just a teaser. I think the focus right now is on the election, as we all know. And I think when we have, a very, for me, and I'm going to clearly talk about investors' point of view as a hedge fund manager for 30 years, is that when you have a stable government, when you have a policy that is like this, not like this, I think growth, investment, FDI, you look at it, we're the fifth largest, we're going to be the third largest equity market in the world, not just in terms of the largest people or whatever. We're going to have the biggest, one of the third largest automobile market. We're going to have the economy, which is going to be stronger. I want to lift all, the people below up. I don't want a country where only, the top 2 or 3 or the top 20 families run like the old days. We want a middle class. We want education. I want women's education. I want, healthcare. So I think the government, and I want the most important, a cleaner, greener future for our future children. This is the most important. We live in Delhi and we see a 500 AQI and we say it's okay. It's not okay. I want our kids to live in a cleaner, greener. And if that means we got to put our hand in our pocket and help our future generations, that's the biggest gift we can give. So I think, coming back to it, I think the government, I think the budget will be much more stronger. And I think the India of the next 5 years is going to be something we're all going to be proud of. And all of you young people, I'm an old guy, but all you young people, especially my co-panelists who are the young men and women of this country, that they're going to be building this country to a much, much bigger future. Thank you.
Mr. Narayan, your take on it.
So from the budget, the good part is because government is fairly sure it doesn't have to actually come up with any kind of a populist budget, so to say. Being a stable government and is expected to come back and pretty stable at the center level, so it can take certain very fundamental decisions. Now, what my expectation would be that on the infrastructure side, the continued focus remains, and which is essentially has a benefit over reducing the logistic cost. I would also like to see greater investment, which of course has to be contributed by the states as well, is the last mile connectivity, right? We've got all these expressways, etc., which may be ending, 30 kilometers, 50 kilometers or so away from the main city or the periphery of the city. But then, the how does it reach inside the city? That's the last mile connectivity that I'm referring to, which you have, for example, in the Delhi Bombay Expressway. You got a spur on this side and you got a spur on the other side as well, so that the benefit of that is reached, is taken for this by the city as a whole. So that's the last mile connectivity investment that I would expect. The other good thing is that the government, because it is now focusing on reducing its fiscal deficit, right, and reducing its borrowing program, which means it should give more and more spur to private investments. We would like to see, announcements being made, etc., so that more and more private capex cycle, which has still not come to its full steam, I think that should basically come through. So those are the kind of policies or announcements that I would like to see in the budget. What I would also like to see is, one of the, for the sector, for the warehousing sector or for the real estate sector in general, but more particularly for warehousing, because it's seen infrastructure asset, as part of the logistics supply chain, is amending the GST laws, whereby, for the construction, the input credits that can be taken as a benefit. Particularly if the government views this as, part of an infrastructure asset for the logistics sector, I think that's something which can be put into. So these would be my expectations.
So we are hoping for a much better budget in June from a stable government.
Yeah,
From a stable government, absolutely.
Yes.
correct. I mean, something which need not be populist, something which helps. Government has done enough support to the GDP over the last several years by doing it investments and more focusing on the capex as opposed to revenue expenditure. I think the share of in the total expenditure, the share of capital expenditure is increasing, which is good because that's income accretive from a long-term perspective. So the direction is all right, and as I said, by reducing the fiscal target, by reducing the borrowing targets, etc. Even as we have seen in the bond market or in the interest rates, it has come down. So the inflation and the interest rates also needs to come down so that the borrowing costs actually reduce, which we are still in the high zone. Though it has reduced recently, but we are still in the high zone. I think that's for RBI also to decide. I think on the 8th, you will also see a direction when the RBI takes up the MPC announcements.
If you have to rate the interim budget from 0 to 5, how would you rate that? Everyone.
Well, in the context, if I may take that first, I would say in the context of the setting of this budget being an interim budget and the stability of the government, also, I would actually say that I would give it 4.5 on 5.
Yeah, it's like Uday mentioned, this is just the trailer. There's more details to come in, and yeah, definitely 4. Definitely 4. It's a good positive way to move forward.
I think from my point of view, I think that, they did whatever they could to the max. You never can give a 5 to anybody because there's always a level to improvement. So I'll join my friends at 4.54, but what I will want is a much stronger and a much forceful, better direction towards building rural India and tier 3 and 4 cities, more projects, more partnerships, more education, more healthcare for all of those masses, and a very, very strong budget in the future for the Nari Shakti of this country. Thank you very much.
Prajakta, remember that this was only a midterm exam.
Yeah.
In that setting, I think
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us, and it was quite an insightful discussion. And we shall now wait for what's in store for the full budget that's expected from a complete from the Modi 3.0 government.
Right. Thank you for having us over, Prajakta. Have a good afternoon. All the best.
Prajakta, I
Thank
think we
you.
have a question
Yes.
which was posted. So the question is, can we say that warehousing space demand will remain high compared with existing supply of warehousing space? I would say that yes, the warehousing space demand will remain high. Temporarily there may be a mismatch between demand and supply, but I would say demand will continue to outstrip the supply. So the supply will, basically there will be continuous demand, except for small blobs, which happen here and there. So I would say yes, it will remain high.
So thank you very much, everyone.